I've been waiting 5 months to talk to you, and you've been hard to find.
I know.
Would it be fair to say that you've been in hiding?
Yes.
Why?
When you realize that the people that you know and you're close to and love have been involved in something that has to do with kidnapping and people dying, you start to think, oh my gosh, are they going to come after me? Like, everything closes in, and you start to think about your own safety, and you start to think about what really happened, and could this really be true? I had all kinds of fears, what the media would say about me, if they would say it the way I want to say it, like I'm saying it now. I wasn't ready.
So why are you ready today?
Because I faced all the fears, and then I decided that the truth was more important than what I wanted. And I needed to do it for those that have passed on, that justice may be served. I think it's fair to Charles and JJ and Tammy and Tylee that someone is standing up for what happened to them. And I do care for them, and I care for the families that are involved.
And is that your goal in talking today?
My goal is to speak to the things that have gone on, and also to speak to many that believe their story of some of the things we're going to talk about zombies, to being a part of the 144,000, to multiple probations. These things do need to be discussed to those that do follow those teachings. And so I have a lot of perspective on that.
Would it be fair to say you know Chad and Lori better than anybody?
Probably.
And you know their beliefs.
Yep.
You know their activities. You know more about this story probably than anybody else other than them.
Yeah, I think so.
You told me the other day on the phone that someone told you needed to get an attorney. And what was your response when they said, have you gotten an attorney?
Well, how I responded to you is, why do I need an attorney if I'm telling the truth? God is on my side.
So let's go back a few years and talk about Chad Daybell.
Okay.
How did you meet Chad?
The first time I met him, he was at a conference or an event speaking about his last days, dreams and visions, and I just walked up to him and introduced myself to him.
Was that in Rexburg?
I think the first time I met him might have been at a camp up in Ogden, I think. Somewhere in that area.
In northern Utah?
Northern Utah.
Were you impressed by what he had said there at the conference? Is that why you wanted to talk to him, or was it just a casual, good job?
I wanted to meet him because I thought his dreams were interesting, and when I met him, I thought he was a really nice guy, and anytime I saw him was at an event.
At what point did you become closer than just seeing him at events or, hearing him speak?
So when Lori and him met, that's when I started to get to know him a little bit more.
Tell me how you met Lori.
So I was teaching a class at church one evening, and she was there, and she introduced herself to me.
And what was that encounter like?
She was very excited to hear the things I was teaching, and so when I went out to the hallway, she came up to me and introduced herself, and she told me about a lot of personal experiences that she had that were spiritual in nature, and we just hit it off.
So from there, a friendship developed.
Yep.
And what was that relationship like?
Wow.
In the beginning,
yeah.
What was it like?
So we talked often about our experiences that we had spiritually, and we talked about some of our trials that we've overcome, and we talked a lot about the second coming as well, and how excited we are for the things that we've been studying and learning, and so just a lot of interest in that area. Mm-hmm. And we just talked about life and being a mom, and JJ being a handful, being autistic, and what that was like, and we just talked about our life.
Do you remember what year that was, Melanie, when you met her?
Yeah, that was 2018, about October.
October of 2018.
Mm-hmm.
So you saw JJ, you saw Tylee, you knew that
Absolutely.
She was raising the kids.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And at what point did she meet Chad? Because you knew Chad and you knew Lori, but they were separate relationships.
Correct. So I met her first. Well, I met him, within years, but didn't know him super close or anything like that. So then I meet her, and then her and I decided that we're going to go to an event, in St. George, and so we drove down together. And then he was selling his books and speaking, and so that's when they got to meet. So that was probably October, November, somewhere in that time frame of the same year.
2018.
Mm-hmm.
So did you introduce them?
I don't know if I did or she just went up to the table. I can't recall.
And was there anything unusual or magical or different about when they met?
So we were there for 2 or 3 days, and I think he was there for 2 days. And she talked to him a lot about his books, and so she asked a lot of questions, and she was very interested in what he thought, and she was interested in what she knew, and so they just started talking about these different beliefs that generally are not something you learn in church, and so they started kind of develop that connection right there. Mm-hmm.
And were you kind of intergrained with all of it right there as they're talking about these things?
I am going in and out, and I'm not sure exactly all the things they're saying.
I see.
Yeah.
But it wasn't anything unusual. It would be if you found somebody at the church that had similar beliefs and you were talking about things, or was it a step further?
It was a step further. It was discussing the things that were not something you would talk at church. It was something that you would talk closely with not a lot of people listening.
Did you know that Chad had a wife and 5 kids in Rexburg?
Mm-hmm.
And did Lori know that?
Yes.
And was Tammy ever with Chad?
No.
She didn't come with him to the events?
No.
And did his children?
Not that I know of.
Okay. So where did their relationship go from there?
So, after spending much time talking those 2 days, we went back to Arizona, and he came down to Arizona when it was the next event, which was in November sometime. And so many people, so some of my friends, some of Lori's friends, and then Chad, all got to stay in her house. It was one of the larger houses she had, so she had plenty of room throughout her house. And so they spent some time talking, and he spent some time talking to us as well.
Everybody stayed in this house.
Right, that's right.
Chad, Lori, you. Was Charles there?
No, he went out of town.
He was out of town.
Mm-hmm.
Did you have much interaction with Charles?
A little bit.
And what was that like?
So when I did interact, it was just like the first time I came over, I believe we did a barbecue, and he was cooking barbecue. That seemed that something that he was good at, according to both of them. And there was swimming in the pool with the kids, and he seemed like just kind of a nice guy, just happy to see us, happy to meet us. I don't know, it was an enjoyable conversation. He was talking a little bit about his conversion to the church, and he seemed to be pretty excited about it.
How would you describe his and Lori's marriage?
There seemed to be some arguing often when I would see them together, so he was trying to do things to help her and please her, and she seemed like she was struggling to be happy by that. Like she seemed a little often frustrated with him. They had something going on that I didn't quite understand, but there seemed to be a lot of contention between the two of them.
Did you ever see him lose his temper or become irate or angry with Lori or the kids?
Nope.
Did you ever see her become upset or angry with Charles?
Like vocally, I could see her, being upset, and he was frustrated back, so he might have had a little bit of that stress in his voice when you argue. So I would say just that arguing kind of a upset voice,
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So he wasn't there at the house the day that you guys were all there for that conference.
Right.
The conference happens, and what happens from there with Chad and Lori?
They just spent time talking about things. They went on a walk together or jog in the morning together. I do recall that. All the things they talked about, it's like so personal. It's so hard to share with the world. You know what I mean?
So it was very personal details.
Some of it, he was teaching us about some of his understandings about multiple lives and things of that nature. But at that point, he had already shared with her when they met in St. George that they had been married multiple times before. So that was established when they first met.
Chad told Lori when they first met that they had been married before?
Not in this, right now in this earth life, but in multiple earth lives.
In a previous life?
Mm-hmm.
And did Lori have an issue with that?
No, she seemed to understand that teaching already, that she had learned already through podcasts. So it wasn't something that was
Foreign.
foreign, right?
So Chad's teaching this group about multiple lives. Is that what it means? Multiple probations? Does that
Right.
mean previous life?
That's right.
So he's talking about multiple probations. He and Lori have been married before,
That's right.
and you all are discussing this. And is that when you decided to form a group? Is that?
No, there wasn't any group. It was just him talking to people individually. He wasn't even trying to express it like, hey, let's start a group. Nothing of that language. So, a lot of people have different ideas about, is this a cult, is this not a cult? And so we can talk about that a little bit later. But
Yeah.
I would just say from the beginning, what it felt like to me at least, is he was just talking to individuals. And he was very kind of private, and so he would talk to her, and then she would kind of share with us. So he wouldn't get too overly involved talking to us. She would just more share what he would teach her to us.
And was she the only person that he was doing this with?
No.
There were others. Mm-hmm. Other women?
Men and women. I knew of it already, yeah.
And do you know, had he told other women that he had been married to them in previous probations?
I'm not sure about that.
But definitely he had told Lori that.
Right.
What was it like to witness this? I mean, did it seem like a normal relationship between the two of them, or did you think this might be going a little too far?
It was definitely different. The idea was definitely a new concept. I'm a very open person, so I don't necessarily think it's not true. And before I just listened to what they said. Did I 100% believe any of it ever? No, not 100%, no. So when you get introduced to something, you kind of just, let it marinate. And so I just listened to them talk about it. I mean, it was not something that I knew anything about until they shared it with me, so.
And not something that you had heard at church or in Sunday school or in a manual anywhere?
Never. Yeah, it does not represent our church's teachings at all.
So they're going on jogs together. He's talking about these multiple probations. The conference ends, and what happens from there?
So he goes back home, and I just know that they're communicating on the phone every single day. I do know that. She would let me know. Yeah.
Did you ever think, she might be falling in love with him?
Yeah, I knew. They pretty much hit it off.
Did you wonder, hold on, she's married and he's married too, and they both have kids? Was that a thought you ever expressed to Lori?
Well, I did actually offer the idea. I'm like, why don't you just go ahead and get a divorce? And they were told that they weren't allowed to.
They weren't allowed to?
Yeah.
Because of church teachings, or?
No, something that they received through the other side of the veil, how they would speak about it, and said, no, we're not allowed to do that.
So they received like a spiritual prompting or a revelation, or
However he got his revelation.
however he got it.
Yeah.
Said, don't get a divorce.
Right, he wasn't allowed to, actually.
Was not allowed to get a divorce.
That's correct.
You said that it wasn't a group or a cult, but do you think it became that over time?
I guess it depends on what you believe those words mean. A lot of us don't understand what those words mean. I would say it's teachings, that you have the basic tenets of the gospel of Jesus Christ that we do as Christians, right? And then you have this doctrine that comes in that's not affiliated with any Christianity that I've ever read of. And it's not doctrine that comes from Jesus Christ, it comes from the adversary. And so that comes in, and it's enticing, because how many people do you hear even in the world that want to know about their future, right? Or they want to know their fortune or something like that. And so it's enticing, so you keep going more and more into it, and then you get to more information, and it gets you to ask questions that you shouldn't be asking. And then you learn these kind of things. And so you can call that what you want. I mean, I didn't see him forming any groups per se. Preparing people is not a cult. They're people, very nice people, that have an event they hold, and they have different speakers. He just happened to be one of them, and they had no no idea that he had these belief systems, nor did he know anything, nor did they know anything about Chad and Lori's relationship. They had no idea.
Yeah, so that was going on separate
Yeah.
from the mainstream church and preparing a people. It was
Right.
this little
Right.
thing.
Yep.
Would you say that you got sucked into it?
Yeah.
Or brainwashed?
I don't know if the brainwash word is, I would say sucked into it. I don't know if you would call it a brainwash or not.
How often would you meet? Would you actually meet together? Or was this more done on the phone or on email or Facebook?
It wasn't anything that was planned. So I just spent a lot of time with Lori. So we spent every day together for a period of time, actually, especially when she left Charles that first time. It seemed like it was every day. It was close to every day. A lot of time together for at least a few months, and then it kind of spread out a little bit. I talked to her a lot personally because she was with me a lot. And he talked to her, but I didn't talk to him very often, just occasionally.
So
when I'd
he'd
get a
call
chance.
her, and because you were with her so much, you
Yeah.
knew what they were talking about.
Right, yeah, exactly.
How did you meet Alex and Zulema and Melanie?
I met Alex for the first time at Lori's house. He often came over to visit. And I think Melanie, too. I met her at her house, and then Zulema I met at church.
Okay, so Melanie and Alex would come to the house while you were there with Lori. And what was that interaction like? What was that relationship like?
It was kind of fun and enjoyable. Alex was fun, and he was a comedian kind of guy, and we just talk about all kinds of stuff. Sometimes spiritual stuff, sometimes non-spiritual stuff. It was in the beginning. It was just more casual, because Alex at this point didn't know anything about that until later on.
Would you say that Chad and Lori were kind of leaders, or at least they were working their way to be leaders of a group, of you, of other people that might follow their teachings?
So ultimately, yes, they did believe that they were the head of the 144,000. So, that's scriptural. That word is scriptural, right? But they believed that was what their assignment was. So I guess in some sense you could say that they were trying to find people that would fit that group individually.
And all along, they're going to church every Sunday.
To a point, and then she just stopped going after a while, after she felt that Charles was kind of chasing her with the papers to be signed for divorce. She kept running, and so I don't think she went to church. So she hadn't gone to church in a long time, and if she did go, it was very rare.
But you were going.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Have you heard anything about burner phones? 60 burner phones being used to communicate, or
I don't know that word, burner.
it's like a prepaid phone that you can go down to 7-Eleven and buy a phone and put 400 minutes on it, and then once it's done, you can get another one. It's not like you have a cell phone plan or anything. Did Laura use a lot of those type of devices?
Well, I know that she had about 3 phones, but they seem to be the same phones. So if she did those and threw them away, I don't know about that.
But she had 3 phones and was getting calls on all of them.
Yeah, it was hard to track her at times. You didn't know which phone she was going to pick up.
Why did she need so many phones?
Well, she had one special phone that her and Chad would communicate with, and he had a special phone outside of his cell phone number. So it was just for their personal communication.
So one specific phone for Chad and Lori to communicate with.
Yeah.
And why could they not communicate on their normal phone?
I guess in case somebody picked it up and saw their conversations.
Why do you think they were so secretive?
When you go to church in the temple, there's certain questions they ask you to see if your belief systems are consistent with the doctrine, and they were inconsistent. And so that's the reason you're going to be secret about it, because you think you know something more than they do. That at least that's what was introduced, is this idea we know more. So if that got out, people would think you were unusual or weird in the church, right? And then they would say, hey, I don't think that you're allowed to go into the temple because of these teachings. So you're going to keep that secret, right?
Latter-day Saints if they want to go and worship at the temple, they need to go see their religious leaders, their clergy,
Yeah.
every 2 years and get a recommend that allows you to go into the temple.
Mm-hmm.
But you have to be living certain standards. And you're saying Chad and Lori clearly were not living those standards, or at least following the doctrines being taught.
Correct.
But they were still going to the temple.
Oh, yeah. That was her favorite place to go. So she did actually go to the temple, but maybe not to church.
She'd go to the temple, but not to church.
Yeah.
So did you know that their teachings weren't in line with the mainstream?
Yeah.
And did you talk with her about it?
Yeah.
And what was the reaction?
Well, when she taught me, she was leading me to believe they were true. So I didn't. There would be times where I'm like, do you think that's a good idea? Or do you think this is, those kind of thoughts? But I just kind of didn't voice a much opposition to it, but just more listened, just more listened.
Was there ever a time where you thought, whoa, this is too much? This crosses the line.
Well, I always thought this is a little unusual, especially, we'll get in talking about later about the zombie thing, but that was definitely unusual. That was hard to completely believe.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was quite unusual.
Did you feel, or did they make you feel special or chosen as they're teaching you these things, that you are one of the elect and you need to be with us?
Yep.
And how did that make you feel?
First, I thought it was me. Who, me? Right. So first you have that feeling of, I don't feel like that's something, because I didn't get that personally from God, So I thought it was unusual. So she kind of had to keep talking me into it. That makes sense. Like, you really are. You need to believe this, and with much enthusiasm.
How did Lori describe your relationship with her?
I would say she would call me a best friend or either a really good friend.
And you all knew each other in previous lives?
Well, she claimed that we did, but I have no memory of that.
They obviously made you feel very special, made you feel like you were elect, that you were chosen. And as things progressed, did you gradually come to really believe that and say, yeah, I am one of the chosen ones?
To some level. Not 100%, but to some level.
Were their beliefs and this belief system written down or recorded in any way?
Yeah. There was paperwork that showed all the 12 apostles to the Old Testament apostles, prophets, people and their the friends that they knew currently, to maybe some movie stars or people. Just in general, they had maybe 4 pages. I don't know how many pages, and that was created by Chad. And he would say, well, these are who they are. This is what lives they live. This is how many times they've been on. So yes, it was a whole document. It was a whole plan. I mean, they would write down on paper, like, this is how many lives. This is what it needs to get to this level. You need to go to this many. I mean, it was quite the plan, if that makes sense. It was quite the
detailed
list. I mean, it was, and I know that Charles was aware of it because he sent it out to a lot of people.
So Chad came up with all of this on his own?
That I know of. I don't know if he got it from anywhere else. I've never heard that before.
And movie stars were on it?
I think so, or either he told us personally. I didn't look at the whole list, so I can't say. I just kind of browsed it a little bit because I didn't feel like it was for me to look at.
Yeah.
So I kind of skimmed it a little bit, so.
Can you tell me about Chad and Lori sealing themselves in the temple to each other? And for those people that aren't familiar, couples will go to the temple and be married and sealed together, meaning they believe that their relationship will continue after this life ends. Did Chad and Lori talk about what they were doing in the temple together, which would be against church policy and procedure?
Right. Chad didn't tell me, but Lori did.
What did she tell you?
And she just told me they went together and they felt that they were sealed by those on the other side of the veil that had the authority to do that.
So they were in the temple together
right.
when this happened,
Right.
Yet she's
That's
still
right.
married to Charles and he's still married to Tammy.
Correct.
And when you would raise this with them, that, hey, you're still married, what was their reaction, or at least Lori's, because I'm sure you never had a chance to talk to Chad
Right.
about it?
She said that it was okay that they did this because they had been married so many times before that their spouses would understand someday.
Lori, from what I understand, said that she has been on 21 planets and Chad has been on 31. Have you heard that before?
I wouldn't say planets, but I would just say lives.
Lives. So she's had 21 lives and he's had 31. That he was a holy ghost and has had 5 lives on this earth and she's had 4 lives.
Correct.
And
Well, no, I think she had 5 lives on this earth.
she had 5 lives on this. They both had 5 lives on this earth.
I believe so.
And Chad made a portal in Lori's closet so she can visit him. What does that mean? That sounds kind of crazy, I'll be honest.
It does sound crazy. So a portal is something that he created for her. I don't know exactly how he did it, but maybe.
Like a box?
No, it's just a spot where he just maybe said a prayer or, however words he uses to create this portal. I don't know. I mean, I wasn't there. I don't know.
Sure.
But it's not like he could come through it physically, but it was a way for them to interact spiritually.
I see.
Yeah.
So it was a sacred area where if she wanted to connect with him, she could go sit and then they would have a connection. What do you think about that?
I thought it was different. I thought, how do you do that? Like, do you have to have some special skills to do that? I didn't understand how people could do that, but I don't know. It was pretty extreme, but to me, everything was new, and I just thought, well, these people know things that I don't know about this stuff, so.
It seems to me, though, that all along you were kind of at the back of your mind questioning, not blindly believing everything they said, but somewhat skeptical. Would that be an accurate?
Yeah. I mean, if you were to talk to Lori, she'd probably say I believed it. But there's always a little bit of doubt because I know she also had doubt. And she, on occasion, 2 or 3 times said to me, if Chad is Satan, he sure is a good one. So that tends to lead me to think that she wasn't 100% convinced either.
That she may have doubted Chad too.
Yeah.
And she said, if Chad is a Satan, he sure is a good one.
Yeah.
Do you know, did she ever tell him that?
Not that I know of.
Or raise questions with him that
I don't know.
you don't know? You talked a little bit about Alex. What was he like with Zulema? Did you have much interaction with the two of them?
Just a little bit at the end, because they didn't know it. Well, they didn't get together until the very end, so they were just developing a friendship.
And you met Zulema at church.
Correct.
Okay. And what was Melanie Boudreau like?
She was. She's fun. I really love Melanie. We did have a special relationship. She loved me and I loved her, and so she seemed that she had a lot of strife going on in her life, and she was really worried about her family, and so we had conversations about what was going on to some level. I mean, I wasn't as involved with their conversations as Lori and Melanie were, but as far as I went, we just were a support of, to each other, I think.
Would it be fair to say that you, Chad, Lori, Melanie, Alex, Zulema, you 6 were kind of a close group of friends, kind of a tight-knit family in a way?
Yes.
So you all would spend a lot of time together, and during these meetups, over dinner or whatever, you talk about religious things, the mysteries of God, things like that.
Sometimes we didn't meet together as a group like a close friendship group together very often. We met on a very rare occasion together, all of us. We more like saw each other here and there, or talked on the phone, or took a drive here together. But that kind of, like you would a friend. You don't always get together as a group, but yeah.
And was it always religious talk?
Pretty much, I would say so.
Not a lot of other talk about politics or the weather?
No, politics.
Sports?
Probably not politics and sports. No, I wouldn't even talk about that.
Sure, yeah. Gardening, whatever.
I would talk about gardening.
So it was mainly religious talk when you'd all get together.
Yeah.
September of 2019, Lori moves to Rexburg.
Right.
Did you know she was going to move? Did she talk with you about this before?
Yep. Well, she didn't decide until, I think August maybe.
And how did she break the news to you?
Well, she said that first she thought Chad would come to be with her in Arizona. And then she said, I think I changed my plans. I think I'm supposed to be up there. He says I'm supposed to be up there, but I need to get my own answer to find out if I'm supposed to be there, because she didn't really want to go there at first. And then she said, I was told, yes, I need to go, and she needed to be there by a certain time, and so she decided to go. And then she just told me that I need to go up there.
And at that time, you're seeing her every day with...
No, not every day at this point. It started to slow down when Charles passed away. I didn't see her as much. It started kind of tapering off in the end, and especially when she moved to Rexburg, it really tapered off because she was now... And then plus she had been to a few different places, Hawaii and Texas, and so, you know, obviously I couldn't spend every day with her. So
Yeah.
it started to taper down after she started moving more.
And before Charles passed, you're talking to her a lot, and is she telling you that she wants to get a divorce, or is she saying Charles is pushing this divorce on me?
She says that he wants to get it, but she does not want to. She doesn't want to go through another divorce again.
I want to get back to that in a minute, but in September she moved. She tells you that she needs to go up there. And what was your reaction about Chad telling her she needs to come up there, knowing that Chad still has the wife and 5 kids?
Yeah, well, we talked about that. I'm like, isn't that going to be awkward? She was uncomfortable with it. She believed that Tammy was going to pass away, though, before she got up there. And that didn't happen. She didn't pass away before she got up there. And so I thought, you know, I said, aren't you uncomfortable? Maybe she'll see you guys together. And so I thought it was different, you know, that she was going to be up there when Tammy was still alive.
And she told you, well, Tammy will die before I move up there.
Right.
How was she going to die?
I heard a few times maybe through a car accident or something like that.
So they thought Tammy would be in a car crash,
Yeah.
would pass away, then Lori would move up there, and then she could marry Chad.
Mm-hmm.
And when that didn't happen, she said, I've still got to go.
Yeah, because, you know, the other side of the veil she's talking to, she said, I need to be there by this date. And
She's communicating with
someone. Yeah.
So she moves up there, and from what I understand, she and Chad would walk around the track at BYU, Idaho, holding hands, maybe kissing, you know, just displaying, looking like a married couple.
Well, she told me that they did walk around the track together. She didn't tell me what they did or didn't do, but I did have an opportunity to walk with them. And then we walked around and looked at the different pictures. I'd never been there before, so I saw the pictures that were in the gymnasium, or, you know, behind it where they have those beautiful pictures. So we talked and we walked, and yeah, I was surprised. I'm like, aren't you worried that people are going to see you? And she says, well, Tammy doesn't come out a lot. She doesn't come over to this part a lot, so.
But they were openly affectionate.
Yeah, and they said a lot of people that knew Chad didn't know what Tammy looked like because they didn't do a lot of the things together.
Did Chad ever talk about Tammy possibly passing away?
I can't recall if he said it, but I know she did. He was very quiet most of the time. He let her do most of the talking.
How would you describe his personality at that time? Just reserved?
Reserved. Yeah, reserved. A little, sometimes he came across not very confident.
Did you stay with Lori at that time when you went up to visit her?
Mm-hmm.
And were the kids there?
JJ was.
But Tylee was not.
Tylee was not.
Where was she?
I was told she was at BYU.
BYU in Provo?
Idaho.
BYU in Idaho. Would that have been a normal answer? Like a normal, okay, that makes sense type thing?
Well, I knew that Tylee had had her GED that she got when she was 16 or 17. I'm not sure exactly the age. And so it could have been plausible, but it didn't feel like it. There was definitely question marks. It was question marks for me. It didn't feel real. It didn't feel like the truth. I didn't know what to say about it. I wouldn't assume that she had done something to her, so it was kind of, I don't know. It was unusual.
But you didn't question her?
I didn't question it.
Was JJ with you on the walks?
No,
Where was he?
he was at home.
By himself?
His uncle was watching him.
Alex.
Yeah,
Okay. So JJ's home with Alex, but there's no sign of Tylee.
correct.
And how long did you stay with Lori? Was it for a week?
So Thursday to a Monday morning.
I'm assuming Tylee never called her. She never called Tylee.
She didn't even talk about her.
Never spoke about Tylee. Did she speak at all about JJ?
Yeah, I mean, he was all around us, and we were talking about him quite a bit, actually.
What did she say?
As I arrived on the Thursday, she had said that he had turned into a zombie the day before I got there. And she was pointing out behaviors of his, like, look how he's doing this, that's unusual, or look how he's doing that. And she was trying to create uncertainty in me about what I saw his behavior. Like, what do you call that? Like a doubt? A doubt. And I was looking at him, and I thought, well, I don't know, he kind of looks like JJ to me, you know, hyper and angry one minute and kind of chill or crying the next minute. Like, that's how his behaviors always were around me. I don't know if they were always like that, but that's how I noticed him when I was around both of them. And she just gave me a few scenarios of different things he would say. That sounded a little unusual. I didn't hear him say it, but she would share things like, he said this or he said that.
Had she talked about zombies before? Mm-hmm. And what did she tell you before JJ? What did she teach you about zombies and belief in zombies?
So the first person, as we all know, is Charles, was considered one. And that was brought to Lori's attention by Chad on the phone call. I was in her house when that phone call came in. And he described to her that Charles was no longer Charles, that this unclean spirit that was friends with Charles on the earth, you know, when they used to be friends, had now passed on, and now he is this unclean spirit on the earth roaming around, and now he's attached himself to Charles, and now he has entered his body and taken over it. So he's not really Charles anymore. He's now this guy named Ned Snyder. And so it was when she told me, and she seemed blown out by it. You know, I could tell she was like, that is really different. And she told me, and I thought, that is very unusual. It was just, you know, because Chad had this influence on people because he had visionary experience. You know, he could see things. At least he said, you know, he portrays that he did. But I do believe that when you think somebody can see things or have visionary experiences about things, you tend to kind of believe them more than the average person. Because, you know, if you ask me, I'd say I don't see anything, so you wouldn't take my point of view or my opinion. But if you had somebody that was really good at having visionary, because he often said that it was like the veil was open when he had his near-death experiences. So he often said that veil is open all the time. So he had this way of seeing things that Lori and I didn't have that we didn't have that gift of seeing. But I do have come to understand that that gift has been manipulated by the adversary. And so...
By Satan.
Absolutely.
She told him all of this.
She did.
And you're saying Lori even felt uncomfortable with that information that Chad had told her?
In the first day, I'll say the first day that she was trying to absorb it, I knew it was new for her.
And Chad's the one that called Lori and
Absolutely.
said, an evil spirit has attached himself to Charles.
That's right.
Named Ned.
That's right.
Any idea where that name came from?
I don't know how he got his information other than she would say he would often sit in his portal and receive revelation about people.
So he's sitting in the portal most likely and received that. And he's telling Lori, you know, Charles has this evil spirit. He's a zombie?
I'm not sure if they used that word in the beginning.
Okay.
They didn't use that word right away. They probably said that someone has taken over his body named this Ned Snyder.
She tells him, he becomes worried, actually goes before a court and says she needs to have a mental, you know, psychological evaluation.
Correct.
Did you go with her to that evaluation?
I did.
And what was that like?
They received her, and she said, oh, you know, she passed with flying colors, and she got out quickly, and I waited on the outside for her, you know, and then Tylee is actually the one that picked us up from there.
And when you say passed with flying colors, do you know what they did? Was it just an exam where she filled out a questionnaire, or she met with a doctor?
They went in the back room, and they just talked to her about all kinds of stuff and asked her all kinds of questions. She didn't tell me in detail all the things I probably didn't want to know. But yeah, she seemed that she wasn't evaluated as mentally ill. So they said that she's like, oh, you're fine. We know that you're not mentally ill. I mean, that's what she told me that they said to her. So.
Do you think she was honest with them in her religious beliefs, or did she lie and give them the answers they wanted to hear?
I don't know. I don't know what they asked her. I mean, I didn't. I should have asked her that, but I didn't.
So she gets out of there,
Mm-hmm.
and is that when the whole incident with her purse happened?
Shortly after.
And tell me about that. She accused Charles of stealing her purse from the car, right?
Correct, right. So she went to drop off JG at the school that he goes to. He was out of town, so his truck was moved from the airport. And so when he came back from his flight, there was no truck. And so then I don't know how he got around or anything. Maybe he called a friend. I don't know what he did. And then I got to remember the details of this. I know she had JJ. She dropped him off at school. And then he came to the school, and then he opened her car door, took her purse, and then took off. And then she got in the car, and she didn't see him. I don't believe she saw him. And then she's like, her purse is missing.
As all of these things are happening, there's a lot of bizarre incidents. Did you ever think, what is going on here? How can there be this much drama in one person?
It was a lot of drama, and I would ask them, like, why does these things keep happening to you? Because I have never been around so much drama in my life. Yeah. I'm kind of a chill person, and so it just seemed like there was one drama after another drama, and it never ended. And so I just thought, wow, this person, I used to say to her, why is everybody in your life turning into zombies? Like, why is everybody after you? Like, why? I don't understand. And she would say, well, it's because, Satan really hates me, and I'm because of my exaltation on the level that I'm exalted to, they're coming straight after me.
So anyone that would disagree with her or cause her any sort of problem would become a zombie?
Pretty much. Or either considered to be dark. They're a little bit different, but that's another discussion.
Yeah. From what I understand, Lori knew how many zombies were in every state.
Yeah.
And she could tell who was a zombie and who wasn't.
Well, not their she couldn't know the whole world's names, so she would just have a number Chad would give her. Like, I guess he would receive revelation on, okay, there's this many. So it was their commission, though, to get rid of all the zombies before, tribulations came upon us. That was their goal.
And how would they get rid of the zombies?
Through some kind of prayer that they would do, which they believed was effective, because they'd go back and, check in the portal to how many died, and the number would come up, 10,000 died or whatever, but there was no way of knowing it was real. Does that make sense? I mean, you have to say, does that make sense, Nate? I know.
So let me get this straight. They're saying there's 10,000 zombies in Idaho. Go into the portal, say the prayer, come out and say, oh, we got rid of 1,000 of them.
Something like that.
Let's talk a little bit about Charles, and then we'll get back to September when you got to the house. Because from what I understand, Lori received a revelation that Charles was supposed to die in an accident on his way home from Texas.
Correct.
He didn't die. So what was her reaction at that point?
Well, I asked her, I'm like, why didn't he die? You were told he was supposed to die. Why didn't he die? And she said, well, I think she went to Chad and asked, because I don't think she knew the answer to that. And so he let her know that the accident that was supposed to happen didn't, because of people's choices. So when things didn't go according to plan or according to a timing, it was only because of agency, and it would change. Oh, it's because somebody changed their agency. Very inconsistent.
And the night before Charles died, didn't she call Alex and say, come and stay with me? Do you know? Mm-hmm. She did.
Yeah.
And then the next day, Alex shot Charles. What do you think happened there?
I didn't know about it till like 4 days after it happened. She called me and she said, hey, did you see the news? I'm like, I don't watch the news.
Wait a sec. Your best friend did not tell you for 4 days that
Right.
her husband had been shot and killed.
Correct. I found out through her, though. She did call me and let me know. And she said, have you not heard and watched the news? I said, I don't watch the news. And she said, Charles was shot. And I'm like, what? And so tell me what happened. And anyway, so I got to visit with her for a while, and she gave me, I think she gave me the rendition that she gave the police. You know, it sounded, you know, what I've heard, it sounds like the same thing as, you know, he came over. And you know, the question that I had, that part of me was like, well, why is he coming to get you and kill you? Like, I don't understand why Charles wants to kill you.
She told you Charles showed up to kill her.
That was his way. He was coming down from Texas.
To kill her. Mm-hmm. And that's why she had called Alex the night before to come over to the house. Mm-hmm. And that he shot Charles in self-defense.
Correct.
You knew, though, that she had told you months earlier that Charles was possessed of a zombie.
Correct.
So did you think, well, there's more here?
Right, because if he's coming down, that's why I'm like, well, what, you know, like as a person that would the public wouldn't perceive him as a zombie, right? Like, what kind of reason could he give anybody for coming down to kill her? Do you know, does that make sense? Mm-hmm. And so she just said, well, they're after me. And I said, well, why? She said, well, for insurance. Like, I have $3 million of insurance on my head. And I'm like, really?
She said she had $3 million of insurance on her head. Mm-hmm. Did she ever talk to you about Charles's insurance?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
What did she say?
She said that he had, I think, about $1 million, and that she knew when he passed away that she thought she'd get the money.
So she talked about how when Charles dies, I'm going to get $1 million.
I don't know if she was 100% sure, because she thought maybe possibly it could have been switched from her to Kay. So she wasn't sure if she was really going to get it or not.
But it was something she was thinking about and talking about.
Yeah, she did know about it.
And then when she found out it had been switched to Kay, what was that conversation like?
Well, she wasn't overjoyed about it. And she's like, well, Kay has the money now. But she also believed that Kay was a zombie as well. So she just believed that they were all against her. That was her belief system. You know, as time passed, she's like, I'll get something from, when a spouse dies, you get Medicare, I think, something like that.
Some sort of benefit.
Yeah, and he was a bit older than her, so she knew that she could get something still, so that she wasn't completely left without anything.
And she brought that up, that she would get money.
Yeah, because I was like, what are you going to do? How are you going to take, the typical things that you talk about when people pass away, like how are you going to provide for yourself?
We heard that she was also getting money as a single mom, money from Tylee and JJ, because JJ had disabilities.
So I know Tylee received money from her father's death. And yeah, I think so. I think JJ did too. I don't remember talking about that too often.
We figured it out, and it was around $6,000 a month, tax-free, that she got between the three.
Yeah, I think she mentioned something like she could get that much amount. Something sounds familiar.
What was your thought when you heard all of this talk about zombies?
I did question it. I mean, all of us did. I mean, I sat and talked to Alex about that a few weeks before he passed away. I'm like, I'm not too sure about this zombie thing. He goes, I 100% believe it.
He said he 100% believed it?
Yes. So Alex really did believe.
Do you think that when he shot Charles, that was in his mind, that
Yeah.
Charles is a zombie,
Yeah.
and I must get rid of him?
Yeah, because he really felt to protect his sister. That was his duty.
To protect his sister. Mm-hmm. So by the time you get up to Rexburg in September, this zombie talk has become normal, or at least you've heard it before.
Correct.
And so let's pick up where we were a minute ago with JJ. She tells you, right when you get there, JJ's a zombie?
Correct.
And starts to point out things that she believed had zombified him.
Right.
And you're thinking, as an outsider, what?
I'm looking at him and trying to discern. And it looks normal to me. I couldn't tell. So I was like, there was a lot of doubt there, obviously. I mean, it's hard to believe that completely. I don't ever even believe that Lori completely ever believed it.
You don't?
I think she, You know, like when you want to believe something sometimes and you listen to people tell you, like maybe she was listening to Chad, or maybe because of why it was happening, sometimes you really want to believe stuff just because you want the outcome is much what you're desiring to have. And so, yeah, I don't know if I think she believed it to a certain level. I'll just say that. But I don't know. I'm not confident that she 100% believed it.
It sounds to me that Chad was kind of calling the shots.
She would say, he's so much better at getting revelation than me. So I used to get a lot, but I rely upon him a lot more now. So she trusted his because she was not considered a visionary, right? So he would tell her, these people, whoever was around her, these people are doing this, they're doing that, they're dark or they're zombie or whatever. He was the one she would call and ask those questions. She said she wasn't very good at getting the answers.
Do you think Chad told her that JJ had become a zombie?
I think so, yeah.
So she tells you all these things. You're kind of like, he looks normal to me, looks like normal JJ.
Yeah.
Did it worry you at all that, oh no, look what happened when Charles became a zombie? Something might happen to him?
I didn't think she would do that because that's her boy, you know. We had actually a talking about this. She goes, well, I need to, you know, it's time for JJ to, I don't know how she worded it, but it was something to the effect, it's time for, he's in the way of our mission, so we need to send him to Kay's house. That was kind of like the idea, is what can we do? And so we talked about Kay, and we talked about some of her family members that could actually take him on. And so we talked about, you know, what that conversation would be like with Kay, and she wasn't sure if Kay would really receive him. And so we talked about just different ideas about, you know, him going there. And so that was the plan that I knew of, is he's going to Kay's house. She told me that. I know that from what I saw in one of the video clippings, that she also told a neighbor that as well. And so that's what I believe was going to happen to him. So I left thinking that that's where he was going, as Kay's, for sure. I didn't doubt that.
So as her friend, you're saying, okay, he's a zombie. He's in the way of your mission. She said that. So you guys came up with a plan of, why don't we let Kay take care of him, or someone in Kay's family?
Yeah.
Had you dealt with Kay before?
I met her briefly, but I didn't interact with her.
Okay.
It was like, hi, how are you? I'm Melanie, and that was about it.
So even though Lori had an issue with Kay, she was willing that day at least to say, yeah, we'll send JJ to Kay.
Correct.
You leave Rexburg
That's right.
thinking JJ's going to go to Kay's house.
That's right.
You never saw Tylee the whole weekend.
Correct.
Because she was at college, allegedly. What happens from there?
This is where there's a big turn in my life. This is when it hits the fan. This is the part that I hate talking about.
Yeah.
This was hard for me. I'm sure I talked to her a few times on the phone. She did express that he went to Kay's house. Okay. So I don't know when she told me, but I would say within a short period of time after I left.
She called and said he's at Kay's.
Right. And she said, oh, yeah, we met up in the airport, and she received him, and he's going to go stay. I mean, she gave me the whole story. The whole story. So I just, you know, I believed it. And it's about Thanksgiving, and everything changed. I thought he was safe, and I get a call from Chad 2 days before Thanksgiving. I still feel emotional about it. I said, Melanie, it's Chad. When the police call, don't pick up the phone. And my heart just dropped. I was so confused. I'm like, what? He says, yeah, the police are over at Lori's house checking on JJ. And I'm like, JJ's not with Kay? No. My heart dropped deeper. And I just knew something was wrong, but I didn't know. I didn't understand. Like, you know, when you believe your friends are good people, you couldn't believe that they could do something like that.
What was Chad's demeanor like on the phone? Was he stoic? What was he like?
He was very nervous.
He was nervous.
He was very scared. He did not sound himself. Very unsure, very quivery almost. Yeah, it was a hard moment.
So that call comes completely out of the blue.
Out of the blue. Wasn't expecting that at all.
He says, don't pick up the phone when the police call. He's scared. He's nervous. He says they're going to call you because they're at Lori's house.
And she's going to tell them that JJ's with you.
She's going to tell the cops that JJ's with you in Arizona.
No, I was in Utah at the time.
You were in Utah.
Yeah.
First of all, that's a bombshell that's just thrown.
I can't even describe how I felt. They put me in a very awkward situation.
Were you able to even question him, or was your mind just...
I was questioning in my mind, but verbally, there was nothing coming out really. I did say, why? She said, well, Kay is trying to kidnap him. And I said, how do you know that? Well, through emails. You know the emails. I said, I have not read your emails. What do they say? She said, Kay had mentioned, it's not like I'm going to kidnap JJ or anything. And I did think to myself, that doesn't sound like a threat.
How soon after did Lori then call?
I can't recall, but it was soon after.
Soon after. And what does she say?
She sounded like everything was wonderful and great. She had an upbeat voice, and I was like, wow, she's positive. And that it gave me a little hope that, hey, maybe, it's not what I'm thinking the worst.
What did she say?
She said, hey, everything's fine. Everything's okay. And I can't quote exactly all the things I said. So she led me to believe that everything was fine and that, that JJ was, I'm trying to remember how she worded it, that she was protecting JJ, something to the fact that they were not just Kay, but it felt like many people were after him. And so she was trying to protect him. That's what she told me. But I've talked to the police before. I was like, when you get a gut feeling, that's real, right? And they're like, yeah, you got to go on gut instinct.
And what was your gut feeling?
If something was terribly wrong. I mean, it just stayed in there for a long time, that gut feeling. It did not feel comfortable. Something was telling me something's off here. I wanted to believe her. I didn't want to think that she would do anything like that. I really, really wanted to believe her.
What did she ask you to do?
She asked me to tell the police that JJ was with me and that when I went, because I was going to go and drive down to Arizona for Thanksgiving, and that he was going to go with me, which I didn't know any of this, right? It's all new to me. That she had made it sound like we had arranged it or something. But anyway, he was going to go down to Arizona with me. And she was going to come down there later and pick him up. So that was a foreign idea to me. I'd never heard of that before. So it was very, I can't even tell you how uncomfortable. After I get to Arizona and everything, I was talking to Alex because I wanted to meet with him. And he goes, I cannot believe she threw you under the bus like that.
So Alex came to your defense.
And I said, I can't believe she did either. I said, I can't believe she said that. That was not smart.
Tell me about what she asked you to do at the movie theater.
So she said, I've told the police that you were at Frozen 2 with JJ, and to get your cell phone out and just take a picture of random kids running around to make it look like you had them with you. And I was thinking to myself, I don't make stuff up like that. I don't do that. So I'm just in shock still. I really, really was in a shock type of, it's just, everybody's listening. Everybody has different opinions, what they're going to think about all this, right? But in that moment, I really did not know what to say.
And you weren't in the right frame of mind to question her.
Right, I wasn't.
And so you hang up that call. Did she say anything else other than go to the movie theater, take pictures of random kids, and talk about the Arizona plan?
I know that at one point we talked about her going on a trip with Chad's children to California. She might have mentioned it during that time, or I called her shortly after that when I was driving down to Arizona. It was between that conversation and that, I can't recall, but that they were going to go on a family vacation and that they were just going with the kids, or his kids.
How quickly did the police call?
Within half an hour to an hour. After thinking and pondering and talking to a really good friend, I'm like, there's something off. And I admitted, I said, I'm very, very concerned about this zombie idea. I really don't believe it. And my friend said, I don't think it's true either. Then we talked till 5 o'clock in the morning. I mean, we talked about everything, the belief structure and all these different things. We talked about all kinds of things about these doctrines. We talked about many things and how they did not fit the pattern that the scriptures teach. I often think about when Jesus Christ was on the earth. He healed people. He cast out evil spirits. He did not kill people. And if they did have an unclean spirit, he was able to get rid of it, and those people were okay afterwards. There was no pattern of this behavior. He was always sharing where they were inclusive and hiding. That does not walk on a path that is light. So darkness is always done in secretive. And I came to understand that. I'm like, this is actually it has been very hush-hush. And that's not how God works. You know, the mysteries of God, which they were always trying to unfold, are about bringing people to Jesus Christ. That's what the mysteries are there. Part of them are about that. They were not bringing that. That was not what was happening. It was not leading people to Christ. It was taking people away from him. Or maybe they thought they had this pretend relationship with him, and it led to people dying. That does not sound like that scripture talks about God does not work in darkness. You don't have to be running and hiding when you're transparent and doing the right thing. You don't have to. When you're telling the truth, you have nothing to worry about. So, one of the feelings that I did want to share to many people listening is that there are many people other than Chad that believe these teachings of many lives or multiple probations within our own church or either close groups that are affiliated. And I want you to decide, as people that believe this, does having this information make you a better person? Does it make you loyal to your spouse? Does it make you feel like you're better than other people? Because of this information, I'll just say it this way, Nate. If this idea of multiple probations had not been introduced, nobody would have ever died. Because they would have never thought they were married before. This is dangerous doctrine. Because this is not how he works. He works on a pattern. I am the same yesterday, today, and forever. He does not make exceptions to the rule. He has no respecter of persons. And when we want things, we do things that are not always the best. All of us do on this planet. And the thing that's interesting is we've all been deceived to some level. Everybody. So this is a world to learn truth and error. I just got to experience something at a very different level. So I got to see something, what I would call a secret combination, unfold in front of me. And I got to see it with my own eyes. Now, I didn't see people die or anything like that, but I got to see the workings of it. This is what this is.
And it sounds like that call from Lori and Chad and the police, that was kind of your awakening.
Oh, yes, absolutely.
After that long talk with your friend till 5 a.m, when you went through everything Chad had taught you,
right,
and all of that you said, this is wrong, and you call the police, and is that when you told them everything you knew?
Oh yeah, I told them everything, just like I'm talking to you. I just let it out. And the interesting thing is that everything I share with them is documented, right? Was before anything came out on the news. So people can say, well, Melanie learned this from other things, maybe. Oh no, Melanie didn't.
This was back in December?
This is back in December, the early part of December, before the first release, the press release, because we talked about the dates to make sure, I was, and I was accurate, and I knew that I was, but I just wanted to make sure. And I said, look, this is stuff I know. So when I go to the police and share all these things about multiple probations, they were married before, people or zombies and things like that, they were not surprised when they were looking at me. They were
the police weren't.
And I was like this, it was hard to say it. I couldn't even say the word zombie when I first talked to them. It was just too painful to say it because I'm like, oh, this is so jacked up. And yet they go, we've heard stuff like this. It's okay. We've heard all kinds of stuff coming, We've been police for a long time. We've heard a lot.
And so you knew at that point that this was foolish and you were embarrassed.
Yeah, absolutely. I said, I'm gullible.
And the reason that you want to make it clear that it's not like you picked all this up over the past few weeks. You
Oh.
you knew this and said this back in December.
Oh, yeah.
Before any of this came out.
Absolutely.
And-
And I was on her team, right? Not on the opposition's team.
Team
so
Lori.
I wasn't, you know what I mean? If we were going to call them teams, I wasn't affiliated with Charles or anybody he was affiliated with. I was only affiliated with this small group of friends. And when I shared everything I did, it was the same things you could read on those court documents that Charles presented, which I didn't know all that stuff was on there, you know, because they started exposing that on the news. So the stories, you know, for all those that do believe in Chad and love him, and I love him too, and I know his family loves him. But I knew about these things before the news released it, and it is documented. So I am only here to share the truth because of those that passed away and that justice needs to be served. My hope is that they will look into their hearts and start to repent of the things and confess the things they did.
Chad and Lori.
Chad and Lori. But it's hard to do that when if you're Lori, think about this, and my heart breaks for her. She's got to admit that these people are dead and it was because of their teachings and their ideas that they had these things happen. It's hard to admit that. You would have to admit that you actually had something to do with the death of your family. You know what I'm saying? Does that make sense?
And
so
her
it's hard.
children.
So it would be hard to say my belief systems are false, because then she would have to say, yeah, this happened. I do feel sorrow for everybody involved, both sides, because everybody's hurting from this. She's in the jail now. She doesn't get to be with Chad, who she loves. That's what she wanted so badly. And now she can't even be with him. It was a fatal attraction that led to their separation and people passing away. It's a tragic story.
One of the people we haven't talked about is Tammy. How did you learn that Tammy had died?
Someone texted me, a friend, not any, person that was associated close, but just a friend. She said, hey, just want to let you know she passed on. And then I said, how did you find out? She said, Facebook.
What did you think when you saw that she had died?
I thought, oh my gosh, she died. That's what they said was going to happen. I wonder what happened.
So did you think it was part of the plan?
I didn't know how they did it, but I knew it was part of the plan, that she was supposed to pass away. I mean, other people knew she was supposed to pass away because, Chad knew this information for, quite a while.
So she passes away in October. What did you think when you found out Chad and Lori quickly fled to Hawaii? Didn't you find out because she sent you their wedding photos on your email?
I knew that they were going to be married as soon as she passed away. I mean, I knew that.
And you're kind of questioning it as to, this is odd, she's here.
It is odd. It's all odd. The whole thing is odd.
When she did die, though, and they went to Hawaii and got married so quickly, did you question that, or was that just part of the plan?
Well, that was part of their plan. Their whole goal was to get together because, they expressed to me many times that Tammy would be okay with this as she passed on. She may not remember it now, but as she passed on, she had a mission to fulfill on that side. And so he felt they both felt that was where she was supposed to go. She was move on and fulfill her mission. So it didn't seem unusual to either one of them that, she passed on, because that was the plan, is that they were going to be together.
After she dies, after they get married, you get that call, don't answer the phone. They call you or communicate at all with you during that week?
I called once on my way to Arizona, and I was concerned for the safety because that's what they led me to believe. So I wanted to have a prayer. I was like, let's just say a prayer, pull over on the side of the road, let's say a prayer. And Chad was very nervous and didn't seem settled at all. And she seemed fine.
So you were still on their side?
Yeah. Yeah.
But Chad was nervous?
Yes, he was.
Lori was acting like it was a normal day?
Yep.
So you spoke the one time over the course of that week?
No, I spoke to her when I decided that there's something going on that's awfully wrong. And so a friend of mine called both of them. So I called Chad's phone, and I knew she would answer because I didn't think any of her phones were working anymore. And so I just said, I have no testimony that you've shared the things, your own personal experiences that are sacred. I have no testimony of that. It doesn't fit the pattern that I see. That's, the pattern of things I've seen within our own church. And I had a hard time speaking, honestly. It was a very hard conversation for me. I said very little. And I said, could you just please tell us where the kids are, if they're safe? Why didn't, no, I said, I think the first question is why haven't you told us where the kids are? Well, for your safety, we cannot tell you. And that just was alarm for me, because I was like, well, what safety? Why am I in danger? I didn't feel like I was in danger. They wouldn't answer us, of course, and I really didn't have a testimony of the things. I never got that confirmation that what the things they shared with me are true or not. So that we hung up with that conversation. I went and talked to the police after that. And once I talked to them, I basically had a long conversation with both of them. Kind of a long conversation with both of them about a lot of personal feelings about, I'm concerned for you. I'm concerned for your salvation, the things that you've done. I said, this is not light, this is darkness. And I asked again, like, why did you tell the police I had the kids? And she said, well, I told them because of, for, safety of JJ and these different answers. And so she did, share that she lied about it. And I asked a little bit about a few other things. Can't recall everything. It was kind of a long conversation, and I was very uncomfortable talking to her. It was a disturbing conversation.
Is that when you said that they were evil?
Yeah.
And how did they react to that?
They didn't like that very much. I just continued to tell her that I was concerned for them. And I am, and I was. Was
this call more out of pleading of, listen, I'm concerned for you, just say where the kids are, basically, I don't want to say calling them to repentance, but in a way saying, you've gone astray.
Yeah. It was many feelings. That was some of them. Yeah.
Everything just came out.
Just a lot of things.
And that's the last time you spoke to them?
Yes.
And then Alex died?
Yes, that was definitely a mystery for me.
How did you find out he had passed?
He was living with his wife, his new wife, right? And we all were in the same ward. And so the bishop called and said, why is there cop cars around Suleiman's house? And I said, well, that was an interesting conversation. And we chatted for a bit, and I explained just a little bit. And then he calls me back and says, he died. I'm like, what? That was that completely threw me. I was like, I had no concept of how that happened. None at all. And I said, what happened? He said he didn't know. And I said, I'll talk to you later when I get back from my trip. We have a lot to talk about.
Your bishop didn't know any of the background?
No. Mm-mm. So I filled him in when we got back. He was very patient with me.
I bet that was quite a chat.
Yeah, he was very patient, but I was grateful it was him.
What did you think had happened to Alex?
I had many different ideas. I thought, did he kill himself? Did he did realize that I was going to tell the police. That was made known to him. And so I thought maybe he really, once he heard my doubt in all of this, maybe his heart was pricked. Maybe he realized that, oh my goodness, I've been a part of something that's not good. And I mean, those are different thoughts that I had. Or maybe, somebody could have tried to kill him. I didn't know. I just really did not know. I was guessing all over the place, just like you were probably. How in the world did he die? I really didn't know. I mean, I asked the police, but they didn't tell me.
Well, we know that Alex died, according to the autopsy, of a blood clot in his lung. Mm-hmm. Do you think there was anything suspicious there?
I don't know.
From what we understand, Alex would do anything for Lori. There was nothing too great for him to do. He loved his sister, and there was no task too good because his faith was so great in God. Yeah. Is that how your encounter with them was, as far as their relationship?
I think mostly. I mean, I don't know if he'd do everything for her, but I think he would do a lot of things for him. I think he just felt like a good brother, a big brother kind of figure that wanted to protect his sister. I mean, they had a lot of fun joking around with each other, and they just had a good relationship.
Were you able to talk to Lori after her brother died, or you had quit communication at that point?
Yeah.
Let's fast forward to January. You see them in Hawaii when we saw them at a beach resort. What did you think when you saw the video of me trying to talk to them outside of the resort?
It was hard. It's hard for me. It's just hard for me to watch the whole story. Like, I was in that place of just like, oh, I don't even want to see the news right now. So, so when I saw that, oh, I had many feelings. I thought, this does not look good for her. And, some of the thoughts I had is if these kids, and please, everybody use their own reasoning for this idea, but, if you really do believe your children are being harmed, or, you think they're going to be kidnapped and you're worried about them, you would be happy to tell anybody and everybody in the police about that. You would not talk and trying to, have no comment to you as you talk to them. I mean, you would say, I appreciate it. I would think you would interact if you really felt that I know if they were my kids and I had to put them in protection, I would be like, yeah, my kids are in protection because crazy people are going to go kill them or whatever. I would want you to know that, so that at least I didn't look like everybody was coming after me. I didn't think it looked good. It just made her look more guilty. That's what it looked like to me, both of them.
Where do you think the kids are?
They're not on this planet anymore. I don't think they are. That's my personal opinion. I know Tylee's a very strong-willed individual, and she's capable of making a phone call if she needs to call. And she hasn't reached out to anybody and let anybody know she's alive. I can't imagine she would be quiet the whole time. I can't imagine it. JJ's a handful. He wouldn't have his medication with him, so how could she take care of him? Tylee and him, how could they take care of each other? And it doesn't add up. If they're in a safe place, why is she in Hawaii having a great time on her honeymoon when her children are running for safety, or hiding in safety? That doesn't even make sense. I think most people understand that. And so everybody's looking in at her going, what are you doing?
Do you think Alex was somehow involved in wherever they are in their disappearance?
I think it's possible.
And that he would do that on behalf of his God or his sister?
His sister, I think. Or, yeah, maybe also a higher reason. Maybe if he really truly believed these things, and maybe he felt like he was doing something good for not only them, but God too, I guess.
The other Melanie has said that Lori has a plan, that she always has a plan, and that the kids are safe.
Yeah.
And Lori's mother and sister have also said that they believe that they're somewhere safe, and the reason they have not asked her where the kids are is because calls are being recorded and because she would not tell them.
I think that they want to believe Lori, and they want to be a support to her. I'm not sure all the reasons why they're saying what. I haven't watched much of, a lot of that footage, just a little bit. But sometimes when you know stuff, it's embarrassing to come forward with it, or you may get in trouble yourself, so you might not want to speak, or you really believe them. So, I don't know.
Do you think they know stuff?
I don't know about some of the people. I don't know all of what they know from Lori. I know some of them what they know, and I know some of them I don't know what everybody knows, but some of them do.
Mm-hmm. You said when you know stuff, it can be embarrassing. Is talking about this painful for you, embarrassing, relieving? Describe your thoughts.
Yeah, well, I don't know if it's relieving so much as I'm happy to do it to help those that are suffering. But it's not my most favorite thing to talk to on television about those that I associated with that have done things that are, this case is so big and so widespread. You can't be excited about sharing, who you associated with. It's hard.
And you said, I believe you haven't watched television in 16 years. It's not like you're a news hound, and you
No.
purposely haven't been following this case. Is that because it is painful?
In the beginning, I was watching to see what they're going to release, because I thought, well, what are they going to say about me? And you're worried about that. So that was a lot of my fears, is like, what are they going to say about me? And so I was making a lot about me. As I kind of got, as I, met with the police more and talked, and I started to feel more comfortable, like, okay, I understand what they're exposing, what they're sharing, everything's out there. I started to get okay with that. But after a while, it was just so hard to listen to. There'd be times it was hard for me to eat. The fear was pretty intense. And I still, was concerned. I still concern and love everybody. I'm not a person that dislikes people or hates people. It's not my personality. So, yeah, it's not easy, Nate.
Did Chad and Lori betray you?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Did they betray others?
Possibly. I have to think about that one to kind of do the work. But yeah, I would say to those that have passed on, if you want to say it that way, yeah. When you look at the circle of people that surround Chad and Lori, there's 5 people dead or either missing. That's not really a good indication that that people in their inner circle are safe, and their inclusive family members are safe. That's you do the math.
Do you
right?
think you would have ever been on that list where a zombie overtook you?
Maybe now I might be. Maybe now I might be.
Are you still concerned for your safety?
No.
Let's talk about Brandon Boudreaux and when he was shot at. Did you have any sort of relationship with Brandon? Had you met him through Melanie?
I had met him briefly, once or twice. Not much conversation. Just hi, kind of that. Nothing.
Casual acquaintances.
Yeah, I didn't really know him. Yeah.
How did you find out that somebody had taken a shot at him?
So that's interesting. I didn't know he was shot at until I was asked to go check on his house and drive by his house to see if their children, Brandon's children, were there.
And who asked you to do that?
Alex and Melanie. And so I drove by and to see if anybody was there, because she was concerned about her children. And I talked to a neighbor, and he said that they had moved out 2 weeks ago. And he said there was no children there. And he said, I'm really glad they moved on because somebody tried to shoot at Brandon. And I said, really? So anyway, I went back and shared this with Alex, and he said, oh yeah, we heard about that. He got shot at, but we believe that somebody tried to take a shot at it to make it look like it was us, or make it look like me. I'm not sure who was referring to himself or.
So Alex volunteered and said they're trying to make people think it was me.
Yeah.
What
You're saying it better than I am.
What did you think when you heard that?
I was like, wow. It was I'm just surprised. I was very surprised by it. I didn't quite know what to think about that. I thought that was unusual.
Do you think it was Alex?
From what I have heard, it does sound like it.
Do you know of anybody else that might have tried to do that?
No, I wouldn't know who likes Brandon or who doesn't like Brandon. I didn't know enough about.
Yep.
Yeah.
July 22nd, 2020. Is the world going to end that day?
No, the world's not going to end.
But Lori believes it will, or at least believed it, and Chad.
Right. So let me just back up for a little bit to help you understand a little bit why all these people died and all these people started missing. That's kind of sloppy work. It's obvious that the kids are missing, so wouldn't you be concerned that people would notice? That was my thought. It was like, why? But the belief system is that she believed that there was going to be an earthquake that was going to hit so large in Utah that by the end of 2019, that they wouldn't notice anything in her personal life going on. So if she were to marry Chad, for example, she said that like probably a year before that, so when Chad and I get married someday, nobody will notice we're married because of the earthquake and the different destruction going on. So as I now understand that the kids are now missing, that she felt confident in doing that, thinking that nobody would notice. And that's why it was kind of done in a sloppy way. I mean, that's how I see it, as kind of like a, that wasn't very orchestrated very well.
So she thought, or at least she said, there'll be a huge earthquake in Salt Lake City, and everybody will be so focused on that
Right.
that we'll be able to do what we need to do.
Correct.
So how does July 22nd come about?
Well, I never heard that date. I always heard August. But that comes from a few different ideas of, it didn't come from her, I'll just say that. It came from different research and she did on her own about the year 2020 would be like a half an hour silence in heaven, and that it matched up to that year. And so that because she believed that it was going to happen according to like what she thought was going to happen at that time, which there was nothing shared on that subject that will say, well, this particular thing is going to happen on that day, but she had concluded herself and wanted to really believe that something could happen on that month. And so therefore it didn't really matter all the things that were happening in her life, that they would, not be known to the world because of all the things that were going to happen.
Looking back at the Lori you knew then to the Lori you see today, in jail, not talking about where her kids are, what is that like for you?
In the beginning, it was much harder than it is now, but it still is. It's hard for me to, I think about her, like what her daily life is and how she's not free. So she was very free and fun-loving, before, and now she is, no freedom. And none of the things she wanted are coming to pass. She's not the happier person that I once saw her to be, or the excited person that she had and hopes for the future. Her hopes are now not her hopes anymore, and they've changed. And that just must be very painful for her. I can't even imagine what she's going through. To think that something, if you believe it, right, and you really believe these things are going to happen for you, it's quite a contrast. And that contrast must be quite an amazing feeling of heartache and wondering. I wonder if she's questioning herself, like, how did this happen? I often have said, Chad claiming to be the visionary that he was, and I believed he was a visionary. I think he does have that gift. And he often said that it was like, there was a part, like the door left, like that God left a door open, and he still had the ability to have visionary experiences often. Because in our church, we do believe people can have visions, right? And so that belief idea didn't make me, well, I'm sure he probably does have vision. I'm not one, but maybe, he is a visionary. But I would think that if he was such a visionary, like he was portraying him and with my friends and with Lori, that he would have saw this coming. This is big. He would have saw this one. And I don't understand how he didn't see it.
Have you thought about the day that you're going to walk into that courtroom and be called as a witness, and she's going to be sitting probably as far apart as we are right now, and looking her in the eyes? I mean, do you think about that and what that experience will be like?
I have. And all I keep feeling is that I have love in my heart still. And it will be hard for me to see her in her jail outfit and, not be able to look as pretty as she'd want to be. Mm-hmm. And I know she doesn't want to be there, But I'm also sorrowful for all those that have had to pass away. Good people. These doctrines are dangerous. And look what they lead to. They lead to people dying. If that doctrine was not revealed, I've said this once, but I want to emphasize it, then these people wouldn't have died. It's very important to people understand that God veils us from any kind of knowledge before we came to this earth. I think most people would agree on that. Most people don't have that information. And there's a reason for that. He doesn't want us to know. I mean, if you believe that stuff, you can believe that, what's the use in this life? We can do it in another one. It's not helpful for your progress. And then it would make the atonement of Jesus Christ not effective. because you'd have to keep repeating. And there's no need to repeat because he did it all for us.
A lot of people think that Lori's kind of leading Chad along, but based on this conversation, it sounds like Chad is kind of the... How would you describe it?
I often see him as the hand and her as the puppet on the hand. And I don't know if that's completely how I want to describe it, but that's kind of an idea. They're two people that have a lot of passion for a lot of things that they think a lot alike as far as spiritual ideas go. And he comes across as reserved and quiet, and she is not. And so I can see how people could see that. But I think ultimately, I think they both are just as equally bad for each other.
Mm-hmm. We hear that Lori spends a lot of her time reading the scriptures in jail and singing hymns.
Yeah.
Are you surprised by that?
No, she really did know her scriptures well. She talked to me a lot about scripture. She read them quite a bit, and she knew them.
She was a scriptorian.
So, yeah, and she loved it. I mean, I always noticed how much I went to her house once and she had her scriptures reading, open. I said, oh, it's just like something you'd see in my house.
Yeah.
She did love the Lord. She does love the Lord. She does love scriptures. She does love beautiful things. This is what's so tragic, is that her great love for truth and the gospel of Jesus Christ is at her heart, I believe. And this has got to be such a painful thing for her to come to believe, so that she realizes at some point she's actually gone against what is true. That would be hard to take in, especially as much as she loves God. That would be hard for her.
And you don't think she'll get to that point?
Who knows? I don't know. I hope so.
Mm-hmm.
I can't say. I always have hope for everybody.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What do you think should happen to them if they're found guilty of doing something to the children, or of Tammy's death, some involvement there?
Well, whatever the punishment is in our country, whatever jail time or whatever, they just shouldn't be back out. When you take people's life as serious, so they don't have a right to come out and hurt other people. It's safer that they're in a place that they can't influence other people, unfortunately.
One of the things I think is kind of neat through all of this horrible tragedy, the friendship that you've developed with Tammy's family.
Well, I haven't really connected to hardly any of her family still. I haven't talked to any of his relatives that I'm aware of, but just one person in Tammy's family. And we just accidentally happened to find each other. So I wasn't seeking after it. But it was healing for her to hear her, me share what I knew, because I was so in their inner circle, Chad and Lori's, that everybody was excluded, I'm sure, from that part of the family. Mm-hmm. So it was sweet. I would just say it's very sweet.
I wanted to touch on quickly, too, the podcast.
Oh, yeah.
How did the podcast platform come about? Did that start with you or somebody else, and how did Chad?
Yeah, it was actually my idea. I had decided to write a book, and then I decided that I wanted to do a podcast to share some of my experiences with a change of heart and the doctrine of Christ. So I had a few people join us, and at the end, Lori was the friend that came right at the end, because I was just starting it about the time I met her, and she said she'd be happy to join. And so we just talked about things that help people to have better relationships with people, or things that we've learned from the Savior, those kind of things.
And so it was mainly you and Lori?
No, it was me. There was 4 of us that were generally on it. We had guest speakers.
And so Chad was an occasional guest. He wasn't.
He was
a
guest. Yes, he was just a guest about 2 times in person and then 2 times on the phone.
Okay. But Lori and you and the other 2 were regulars. You were regulars.
Yeah.
What's the one thing you want people to take away from this interview? What's the one thing you want people to remember about Melanie Gibb?
Oh, boy. I don't want them to remember me.
Yeah.
truthfully. I didn't want to get known this way. But I do want to, if I am remembered to the person that loved the group of people that are in trouble, to know that being deceived can be very dangerous. And listening to your own revelation and not people's is very important. Not letting people tell you what to do for your journey. To really seek personal revelation yourself, and not putting the trust, your trust in the flesh. And that kind of keep coming after me. I kept getting that in my mind often, is do not put your trust in the arm of flesh. And that's exactly what everybody did.
Have you had any interaction with his family?
Not with his children, no.
Is there anything that you would want to say to them if they're watching?
Wow. This is really hard. I am feeling for their journey. Getting up here and speaking, I have no desire to say things about people that's hurtful. It's just truthful. But that's not my personality to gossip. So this is very uncomfortable for me. I do care about those kids. I know Tammy does. I do know that they did meet Lori. I did know, if I'm speaking to them, I did know that you met Lori. That's how close, just to let you know how close I am to the situation. I know that she had them all over at her townhome for cookies, after the funeral when she came back to town. And I know they fell in love with her, according to her. So I can see why they would like her, because she was so excited to meet them, and she was very loving, and she has that personality. She can just take people in, and she just takes them like Velcro almost. She just pulls you into her inner circle almost to the point she doesn't let you go. And so she has that personality, and so I'm sure that it's hard to know who to believe. And my heart does go out to them, and I want them to know that it's really hard for me to talk about their dad, because I really like Chad. I think he's a good guy.
Still.
He's a nice man. Yeah. I like him as a person. But his teachings, they're dangerous.
If he's watching, what do you say to him?
I still care for you and Lori. And this is really painful, what you're going through. But God has always taught us to be honest. There's no exceptions to those rules. And when you walk with peace, even if you're guilty and you confess, there's a peace that comes from telling the truth. I know I have that peace because I've come forward, because people passed away. And I'm grateful they actually lied to the police about it.
You are?
I am, because it made me have to face it. And it made me go through all kinds of experience that nobody on the planet wants to go through. I had to face fears that I never had before, a different level. But my faith got stronger in a way that's changed forever. And I hope that they realize that when we open those doors to darkness, they tell us things that we want, because sometimes we want things. But we are taught to bridle our passions. The Lord taught me that over and over. To be a zealot, but to not be overzealous. And we have to learn how to have patience, wanting nothing. And sometimes when we really want something, that's when we fall. And sometimes the answer is no. Wait. But boy, she did not have patience. That's one thing she did not have, is patience. And it led to a fatal attraction, unfortunately.
You said that when you want something, you have to bridle your passions. What ultimately did they want? What did Chad and Lori want? Power? Followers? Was it about sex? Was it about money? Was it about God? What was their ultimate goal, do you think?
Ooh, that's a really personal thing. It's hard to share because of she shared a lot of personal things with me, and I hate to share that out loud.
What
It's
can you
hard.
tell us that you feel
But I'll just
comfortable
say
with?
that it was a fatal attraction. It was a lot of love between the two of them. They really, really seemed to love each other a lot, and they just couldn't wait to be together. And
Lust too?
yeah,
What would you say to her?
we've had a lot of fun times together. We've laughed a lot, and I love her. And I'm so sorry that she's been so deceived by Chad, and that she's also been deceived by not just Chad, but I believe other people on the other side of the veil, pretending to be good when they're not. And she got tricked, and the same thing is when we want something really badly. But if we go into our heart and realize the path that Christ set was perfect, it was loving, it was kind. He never called people dark or light. You know, he wasn't looking at people as if they were attacking him or hurting him. He was always going forward in love. That was his whole mission, you know. And so their mission does not align with one that would walk with Christ. I know you're suffering. I think of you every day in the jail, alone, without Chad, who you love, and I know that's really painful for you. I wish that none of this happened. I have learned a great deal about deception, and now you have learned a greater deal about deception. I just hope that you can really put aside a lot of what your wants are and be humble and really feel like what he's telling you, he still loves you. He still loves Chad, and they can always be forgiven. However long that takes, I don't understand. But he's a good God. And I know that he died for her too. And there's still hope. That's what I want to say to you.
That is quite a message of love and peace,
Yeah.
where a lot of people don't have love for her.
I know.
And she could end a lot of this if she just would speak and say where the kids are.
Yeah.
Do you think she will?
I don't know. It doesn't look like it. As long as she holds on to these beliefs, she won't. But if she comes to realize which her inner feelings were, could Chad really be Satan? And if so, he's a really good one. You know that conversation we had, Lori? Maybe that was that little feeling telling you inside that, yeah, he wasn't doing the right things and saying the right things.